I don't know what this is. I feel like I should like put over some Bollywood music or something over that. And looking at what my basal metabolic, I knew I would butcher that. I'm not proud of the fact I fell off the wagon, but I am very bloody proud. Hey guys, and thank you so much for clicking on today's video. If you're new here, my name's Sharon, these are my parents, and welcome to my weight loss, fashion, and everything fun channel. So today is my very second ever weigh-in for the month of November. I have definitely filmed myself getting on the scale and also taking my measurements, so if you just want to skip ahead to that, then you're more than welcome to. But if you're curious about how I started the month recovering from COVID, how I got frustrated with my plateau, fell off the wagon for a 3-day bender, got back on it again, and also switched up some of my medication and my diet, then all you have to do is just keep watching. You're already partway there. So full disclosure, this is definitely going to be a longer video than what I would have intended, but that's because there is so much that has happened in this month. As we all know, life isn't perfect. Sometimes the way we handle situations isn't ideal. So I really want to be able to cover everything that sort of happened this month in the hope that it may actually help and benefit someone else, perhaps from not necessarily making the mistakes that I've made this month. And hopefully there's something in it that resonates with you as well if you're on your own sort of weight loss journey or any kind of journey into self-improvement and self-betterment. So with all that being said, grab a cup of tea. I'd love a hot chocolate if you're making some, and let's get comfortable and let's get into this video. So if you did want to skip ahead to certain sections, I will actually leave timestamps with title card details, etc. down below in the description box, so you can just skip ahead to the points that you want. So my last recorded weigh-in was on November the 8th on a Sunday, but I uploaded my very first weigh-in video on November the 9th. So I tested positive for COVID on October the 25th. So literally when I weighed myself on November the 8th, it was after my 2 weeks of isolation. I just really wanted to know at that stage where my weight had gotten in that time, because obviously I was isolating at home. I wasn't necessarily sticking 100% to plan in terms of my diet, because some days I wouldn't feel like eating at all, and other days I consumed what would be the equivalent of an entire elephant in terms of calories. So things were really difficult there while I was battling through a lot of different symptoms. So my isolation ended on the 8th of November and I was back at work on the 9th of November. And even though I was back into my really physical job, I had maybe half the strength that I had. All of my symptoms had subsided, but I just wasn't at full capacity at all. So even though I was back at work, I definitely wasn't doing any extra activities or exercises outside of that, because I could barely make it through the day as it was. At the same time that that was happening, I was trying a new medication for me. I have recently been given a preliminary diagnosis of PCOS. So I was given not a subscription, I was given a prescription for the drug called metformin. So typically this drug is used in the treatment of patients with diabetes, but it is also commonly used, I think, for PCOS patients who are wanting to help manage their weight, as weight loss can have really drastic improvements on the overall condition of PCOS. So once I started heading back to work, I started taking that drug at the same time. I did actually attempt to take it in one of the 2 weeks that I was off with COVID, but I felt as though that was a bit counterproductive. My body was already fighting off this infection, and it really wasn't wise to start new medication, so I stopped that shortly after. And once I was back at work and what I assumed was well enough, I started taking that metformin medication. So immediately within about 3 or 4 days, I started noticing that I was absolutely shedding centimeters off my waist. Previously, I had held the same waist measurement, even though I had lost centimeters and pounds off my body. I had held the same waist measurement for 6 months prior, and within 3 or 4 days, I lost 2 centimeters, which for anyone else doesn't sound like a lot, but for me, considering I hadn't been able to lose any weight off that section of my body at all, it was phenomenal. Shortly thereafter, I started noticing that I was getting really intense dizzy spells, to the point where even laying completely flat in bed, I would still be extremely nauseous, and just simply turning my head from one side to the other, just the slightest motion would set off a whole cascade of blurry vision and dizziness, and I just felt awful. Also, at the same time, I found that I completely lost my appetite, which, reflecting back on it now, makes sense because the drug is designed originally, or was designed originally, for diabetic patients. It probably was designed for someone who maybe ate 10 pizzas a day to try and cut them back down to maybe 3 pizzas so they could try and manage their weight through, limitations in their food and their calories coming in. But for someone like me, who was already on a calorie controlled diet and already pretty strict with the food that they eat, I just completely lost my appetite. And what I found started happening is that I was drastically under eating my calories, but I just had no motivation to eat. In fact, the thought of eating actually made me feel even more sick. And keeping in mind, I was already feeling pretty nauseous and overwhelmed as it was. So after that, I decided to immediately stop the medication. So in total, I think I was taking it for about 7-8 days at the maximum. Once my dizzy spells started becoming too extreme, I just thought it wasn't worth it for the weight that I had started to shed. So I stopped it immediately. So those two factors combined ended up leading to a really drastic plateau. So I weighed myself on the 23rd of November and was shocked to see that I had actually put on half a pound, which to anyone else in a normal weight range would be nothing. Half a pound, like you could go to the toilet without being too vulgar and, drop half a pound into the old porcelain bowl. But for me, it was devastating. To maintain is already frustrating enough. When I saw that half a pound gain, I literally threw all the worst tantrums that you've ever seen, of like your neighbor's kids in the movies, Godzilla style, flipping stuff, ripping buildings. Like, I was just so angry. I was frustrated. I felt betrayed. I'm thinking, I'm doing all these right things, I'm sacrificing all this stuff, I'm trying to get a hold of my weight, my health, through this very frustrating condition. And not only are things just not moving and plateauing, but now all of a sudden I'm gaining weight. That was it. From there, I hit rock bottom. I was emotional and angry, and I just wanted to off the diet and be done with it and just have a break. And I was just so angry. And I think a lot of that came in as well with the fact that I had just started this YouTube channel, and I had released this video saying, all my unrealistic goals and all the stuff that I wanted to achieve, and I worked so hard to try and achieve those things. I did not come off plan. I exercised as much as I could physically. I went to work and was doing 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15,000 steps every single day. I was doing everything right and by the book, and still I was looking at this half a pound gain. And I set this unrealistic pressure on my shoulders as to how much I wanted to lose. And I didn't want to be a failure. And failure is a part of life. And I have always felt like you're never really going to enjoy any success that you have unless you know what failing feels like. But for so early on in me starting this channel to experience that, I felt embarrassed, and I almost wasn't going to record this video at all. So I then went on a 3-day bender. The very first day, I was definitely emotionally eating. I was absolutely punishing myself. I was angry at my body. I was eating crap from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to sleep. And the next 2 days, I started off with my regular breakfast. I had my regular lunch. I really started, but I was exhausted emotionally at that point. And so when I came home, I didn't feel like doing dinners and being thoughtful. I didn't care. I didn't exercise for those 2 days or for the 3 days. And I just ate crap. I think one night we had KFC, and then the next night I had what did I have? Pizza. Um, and I was just done with it. And by the end of the third day, I was feeling so heavy and bloated and sluggish, and a feeling that I hadn't felt in so long. And I realized that this weight loss journey is really for me. It's for my mental health. It's to make me feel happy and healthy within my skin, and it's not about what that number is on the scale. And it had only been 3 days, but because of my PCOS, with all that influx of fats and salts and sugars into my body that I hadn't had for weeks and weeks and weeks on end, I just felt so disgusting. And I thought, the only person I'm punishing here is myself. And I just decided to switch. And that's usually what happens when I fall off the wagon. It's very short, very emotionally driven, very impulsive. And once I've almost had it out of my system and had my tantrum and been upset and allowed myself to experience that emotion, then I get right back on it, because I don't like that feeling when I'm in there. It's almost as if it's something that I need to experience to remind myself how awful I used to feel when I was at that weight, if that makes any sense. That all got out of my system, and come the weekend, I decided, right, I'm actually going to look at this objectively. I decided that I would watch a lot of other content creators on YouTube who also suffer with PCOS. I started hearing a lot of information that was common to all these different women that were talking about myo-inositol or inositol as a supplement in order to sort of aid their body in their weight loss and functions, because the biggest sort of part of PCOS is that there's a major hormone imbalance. And in all the time that I have been fighting through the NHS and privately as well here in the UK to get a diagnosis, no one had ever spoken to me, and I had never really thought about going down the avenue of natural supplements in order to be able to sort of balance my hormones or balance some of the things within my body. So I found this really interesting, and I started doing more research into inositol and myo-inositol. I'm probably not pronouncing those correctly. We'll just blame it on my weird Australian accent. But after looking at a lot of reviews and again watching a lot of footage from other content creators, like I said, who have been through the same sort of journey for years and years and have sort of figured out what works best for their body, I decided that I would try and take the supplement myself. So I placed an order, taking that for a little bit over a week now, and I'm finding that I have no symptoms whatsoever. I think the maximum recommended dosage is to take 2 pills a day, but I've only been taking it in the morning with my breakfast. I also have IBS, so I don't necessarily want to set off anything else in my system. The other thing that was really important for me to focus on when I was going to jump back on the wagon was to really take a look at my diet and what I was consuming, and having a look at what my basal metabolic rate is, particularly for my weight and the activity level that I do. So right now I make sure that I eat at least 2,200 to about 2,400 calories every single day in order to properly support myself. My job is really active, and I also exercise outside of that probably 4 or 5 days out of the week. Part of those changes included that I have created a whole other snack in the middle of my day. So I always have the exact same breakfast. I now have a mid-morning snack, my main lunch, an afternoon snack, and my dinner. Part of the reason for that, when I was looking at some of the changes that have happened in my life recently, is that my work schedule has changed. So now, instead of starting in the morning and finishing at a normal time like 5 o'clock, I'm actually usually working up until the evenings at 8 o'clock. So it means from my first meal in the morning for breakfast, until my lunch, there was a good 5-6 hour window, which for someone with PCOS is not necessarily a good thing to go for that long without eating. It tends to mess up with some of your hormones and trigger things where you might actually end up overeating rather than having a small snack in between to kind of keep you satiated and on an even keel. And that's the best information I can give you with my very basic knowledge of this condition that I'm still in the process of learning and understanding. Right, so now to the part that you've all been waiting for. Thank you so much for being so patient. Me jumping on the scale yesterday on a Sunday. So today is Monday, the 7th of December. So when I jumped on the scale yesterday, I weighed in at 17 stone 4, which is, from my last video, a very humble 2.5 pounds. So it's not my ideal number at all. I would have hoped and expected to have lost more, but I am really excited at the fact that I feel like I've got a really great supplement that seems to be working for me, certainly with no side effects, and that I've got a really good diet plan and meal plan in place. So I'm super excited at what I'm going to achieve in the next month. And like with anything else, I feel like what I went through this month was necessary to maybe teach me some things that I need to keep in mind for the rest of my journey. I'm still grateful that overall I've lost something in the month, and aside from losing that 2.5 pounds, I've also lost 12 centimeters off my entire body. So I'm always for non-scale victories, and I can definitely tell that my clothes have been fitting very differently. So that tells me that there's definitely significant changes, even though there was only a very slight change on the scale this month. So I am not proud of the fact I fell off the wagon, but I am very proud that I got back on and that I have started again with more information and with a new sort of perspective and drive to continue this journey. My goal really for this next month, not that I'm trying to set myself up for more disappointment. I should also mention that after my 3-day sort of bender, I ended up putting on about 3 to 4 pounds. And in this last week alone, I've dropped 5.5 pounds in order to bring my total monthly loss to 2.5 pounds. So that's the reason why I'm feeling quite optimistic, because since I've put these conscious changes in place, I've seen quite a dramatic weight loss just in this 1 week alone. So I'm excited to continue, maybe not necessarily at the same pace. I do not expect to lose 5 pounds every week. I'm very grateful when I lose anything, but I would like to lose for next month 6 pounds in the entire month, which for me I feel is very doable, especially if I stick to this new eating plan and stick with this supplement. And that should take me to 7 stones exactly lost. If I could lose another 2 pounds after that by my birthday, that would bring me at a total loss of 100 pounds, which would be phenomenal. And it would actually be the lightest I have ever weighed since I was probably about 18 years old, which is crazy to be turning 32 and be just as small as you were when you were 18 and actually healthier than you were when you were 18. So guys, if you have stuck around to the end of this video, you are absolute champions. You've stuck through all of my ramblings, all of my awkward edit cuts, all of the lighting changes, because I'm trying to like deal with natural lighting today. I thought it might be better than seeing harsh ring light reflected in my glasses. So if you've made it through all of that, you are an absolute trooper. Clearly you like hanging out with me and my parents, so why not click subscribe and join the tribe, and then you can hang out with us again. Comment down below and let me know if you're also on a weight loss journey, if you've got any advice through some of your struggles that you've been through, if any part of my story this month has resonated with you. And yeah, I can't wait to see you guys in my next video, and I'm looking forward to this next month. I hope you're all staying safe, and I'll hang out with you soon. Thanks guys, bye.